You don't really notice when your life starts falling apart. You notice when it's already on the floor, and you're standing barefoot in the broken pieces, pretending they don't hurt. I wasn't crying the night I slept in my storage unit. I want to make that clear. It was cold, sure. Loud too. Someone was running a generator 2 rows down, and the light inside flickered like it owed someone rent. I curled up next to a box labeled winter jackets, even though I couldn't find any in it. And as I laid there, surrounded by what used to be my life, all I could think about was the stupid phrase she used. It's just business, Curtis. It's not personal. Except it felt personal when she deleted my name from the contract template we'd written together on her kitchen floor. It felt personal when she auctioned off my office chair, the one with the lumbar support I literally sawed and re-glued myself during the bootstrapping years. And it definitely felt personal when the company card declined at the pharmacy and I realized I was locked out of every account I once logged into 10 times a day. But to her, it was business. Madeline Mathers-style business. I once saw her close a deal during a minor car accident. I swear to God, the other guy was yelling, and she was calmly muting him between Zoom unmutes, locking in 6 figures like it was nothing. That was her gift, weaponized composure. And I was the idiot who gave her that stage. Not metaphorically, literally. I built the live streaming module for our product from scratch, the one that made it scalable. The one that Bryce, her new strategic partner, now parades around like he coded it in his sleep. Madeline called me the backbone once. Turns out, backbones are disposable, especially when they don't photograph well at investor dinners. Anyway, the night it all became real wasn't when she left. Not when the lawyer called. Not even when Bryce sent that smug email about transitioning my responsibilities. No, it was when I went back to our company's website and noticed something. Under the Founders tab, my face wasn't just gone. I'd been replaced. Same pose, same background, but it was Bryce, wearing my jacket. Literally. He always said he liked it. That's when I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because you have to laugh or you start clawing at drywall. And I sat there, in that storage unit, holding the last unopened box, a crumpled napkin, a prototype sketch, and a flash drive I hadn't touched in 2 years. The file on it was called EchoGen_V0. 1_alpha. No one knew it existed. Not her. Not Bryce. Not our investors. No one. It was raw, incomplete, ugly, but powerful. And mine. And in that moment, I realized something. She'd taken the spotlight. She'd taken the money. She even took credit for my ideas. But she forgot about the one thing she couldn't trademark, sell, or spin in a press release. Me. And I was going to make a comeback. Not loud. Not flashy. Just irreversible. The next morning, I borrowed a shirt from a donation bin behind a Methodist church and took the city bus to a co-working space I hadn't visited in over a year. I still had a fob. No one thought to disable it. That's the thing about being erased. People forget to lock the doors behind them. They just assume you won't come back. I sat in the farthest corner of the second floor, beside a flickering outlet and a vending machine that sounded like it had asthma. I didn't care. I plugged in the flash drive like it was my last weapon on Earth, and maybe it was. EchoGen wasn't a startup. Not officially. It was a project I built before the real money came in. Back when I had too much time, too little sleep, and an obsession with fixing a broken part of the internet. The way people forget what they don't see. EchoGen wasn't just about analytics or algorithms. It was built to track attention decay. How fast people forgot you. How fast trends died. How fast loyalty collapsed when marketing shifted 2 degrees. It was brutal, cold, but it worked. And back then, even Madeline said it was too intense to demo for investors. She told me to shelve it. I did. Like an obedient idiot, I shelved it. Now I was unshelving it with the focus of a starving man reading recipes. The interface was clunky. The backend was outdated. But the engine, the prediction logic, still pulsed like a dormant heart. It didn't care about branding or funding rounds or fancy chairs with memory foam armrests. It just needed data. And I still had access to some data. Enough. I spent 12 hours feeding it open source feeds, fake profiles I still controlled, dummy newsletter pipelines, SEO trends, every breadcrumb I could find. It watched the internet like a hawk with nothing left to lose. And then it blinked. Not literally, but that's what it felt like. The graphs started moving. The clusters formed. Names floated to the top. And you know what name kept showing up next to Madeline's? Not Bryce. Not the company. Not even the new product she was hyping on podcasts with her Visionary Journey script. Me. Specifically, what happened to Curtis Rames? Reddit posts, dev forums, private Discord groups, a ghost trail of ex-users, old coders, beta testers. They weren't many, but they were loud, angry, curious. Some had theories. Some had receipts. One even posted a blurred photo of the original EchoGen sketch I'd drawn on a napkin at a coffee shop in Tulsa. The exact sketch I still had folded in my jacket pocket. That was the moment I realized something even more painful than being erased. I hadn't been erased. I'd been buried. On purpose. You don't bury someone unless you're scared they might rise again. So I leaned in. Over the next 4 days, I slept on floors, lived off trail mix, and messaged 37 people anonymously. Engineers, students, indie tech writers, digital archaeologists. I sent them just enough. A glimpse. A truth. A version of the past no one had let them see. I didn't tell them it was mine. Not yet. I wanted them to dig. And they did. A dev from Michigan cross-referenced the metadata of an old prototype build and posted the timestamp on Twitter. A researcher in Bangalore noticed code similarities between Madeline's newest app and my archived repo from 2 years ago. And then a blogger in Ohio, some guy with maybe 800 subscribers, made a video titled, "Did Madeline Mathers Build Her Empire on Stolen Code?" It only got 12K views. But it was enough. Because that night, my old phone buzzed for the first time in 3 weeks. A blocked number. No message. Just a single call at 2:14 a.m. I didn't pick up. Instead, I reopened the EchoGen dashboard. And I saw the first real spike in inbound attention. For me. Curtis Rames, trending keyword. Curtis Rames, source citation. Curtis Rames, anomaly trigger in social sentiment graphs. It was beginning. I wasn't famous. I wasn't rich. But I was noticed. And I knew from working with Madeline. There is nothing she fears more than a man she once buried, who refuses to stay dead. I didn't expect to see her name in my inbox. Not directly. Madeline never contacted people directly anymore. She had layers of handlers now. Assistants, attorneys, PR managers who spoke with that high-gloss calm that only came from rehearsed contempt. But there it was. Her name. Right there in the forwarding header of an email I should have never seen. The original email wasn't even to me. It was from one of her staff, a reputation manager named Erica, sent to a private legal team thread. I'd infiltrated the list by accident through a proxy address I'd used during our beta testing days. I didn't even remember it existed until EchoGen surfaced the domain during its dig. Subject line. Rames situation, escalation plan, confidential. That phrase alone stopped my breathing. The Rames situation. That's what I was now. A situation. A PR threat. A problem to be eliminated. But the worst part wasn't that they were planning to bury me again. It was the tone of it. Like I was just a stain on their sleeve. A bug to be patched. Madeline's reply, concise, clinical, read like an execution order. I want zero oxygen going to this. Block the IPs. Flag the videos. No public engagement. Anyone who asks gets the script. We appreciate all innovation in the space and remain committed to transparency. You know the drill. And then, at the bottom, one sentence that scorched itself into my spine. He never had the stomach to finish what he started. He'll burn out. She said that about me. She knew me better than anyone. Or at least she used to. She knew how long I could go without sleep, how obsessive I got when something was broken, how dangerous I became when I had nothing left to lose. And still, she dismissed me like an expired domain. But here's the thing. She'd already underestimated me once. The first time cost me everything. The second time was going to cost her more than she could ever imagine. After reading the email, I didn't rage. I didn't panic. I didn't even throw anything. I closed my laptop, sat in the dark of that co-working corner, and did something I hadn't done in months. I smiled. Because it meant they were scared. It meant they saw me coming. And unlike them, I didn't have to hide behind legalese and polished statements. I had nothing to protect, which meant I could do what no one in their orbit dared to, tell the truth. But telling the truth wasn't enough. I knew better than that. Truth on its own gets buried under louder noise. It needs fuel, proof, teeth. So I went back to the archives. Years ago, when Madeline and I were still building from our apartment floor, We recorded nearly every brainstorm session. Not for nostalgia, for IP protection. Audio logs, screen shares. Even the awkward 2 a.m. rants where we bounced ideas between cups of instant ramen and old Kanye albums. I still had them. She didn't know that. Buried on an encrypted drive in a shoebox of wires and expired debit cards. One final backup she'd forgotten to wipe when she locked me out of the company vault. And buried in those files was gold. I had voice recordings where she acknowledged my ownership of the EchoGen engine. Not just once, repeatedly. I had video clips showing me building the core framework. Her own voice saying things like, "You should patent that before someone tries to steal it. You're the only one who understands it." I watched that clip over and over. Because now, someone had tried to steal it. And it was her. But instead of rushing to dump it online and cause chaos, I waited. Because timing is everything when you're swinging a match near gasoline. I sent 3 clips to 3 specific people. A mid-tier YouTuber who once got blackballed for calling out a crypto scam. Someone with nothing left to lose and a chip on his shoulder about Silicon Valley fakes. A freelance investigative writer who used to write tech columns for Wired, but now runs her own blog after corporate cutbacks. And most importantly, one of Madeline's own investors. The one who still owed me a favor after I fixed his portfolio site in under 12 hours when it was hacked 2 years ago. I sent them without context. Just files. Labeled, for when the silence gets too loud. I didn't hear anything back that night. But by morning, the tides began to shift. First, a blog post went viral on Hacker News. Deleted founders, stolen code, and the startup that silenced its skeletons. Then the YouTuber dropped a 19-minute video titled, "The Tech Queen Who Built Her Empire on Lies." Thumbnail? My old photo. Blurred. Labeled the forgotten founder. And then, the investor. He didn't reply. Didn't message. He just unfollowed Madeline on LinkedIn. I knew what that meant. She'd feel it. She watched her LinkedIn like oxygen. This wasn't a comeback. Not yet. This was pressure. This was tension in the cracks. And pressure eventually makes things explode. I didn't watch the interview live. Couldn't. My stomach was already doing Olympic-level flips just from the preview clips circulating online. But the full interview was everywhere the next morning. Clipped, stitched, re-uploaded by accounts I'd never heard of, some of them with captions like "Tech Queen Under Fire" and "The Rise and Fall of Madeline Mathers." At exactly 10:07 a.m., her face filled my cracked screen. It was all too familiar. That flawless composure, that navy blue blazer she always wore when she needed to look human but in charge. Her voice was calm, modulated, almost too slow, like every syllable had been rehearsed in a mirror the night before. There was no panic in her. No cracks. At least, not on the surface. She started with the usual, a rehearsed statement about how rumors can be painful, but transparency has always been at the heart of our company values. She talked about innovation, community, trust, and other words that meant nothing when spoken from a chair built on betrayal. And then they brought up me. The interviewer asked, "Some are saying your co-founder was removed unfairly, that key parts of your platform were his original work. There are recordings, blog posts, even code timestamps pointing to his involvement." Madeline didn't flinch. She smiled gently, the same smile she used when closing deals that made her sick inside but rich on paper. "I've always encouraged collaboration. Curtis was a wonderful contributor in the early days, and I respect his passion. But let's be clear, startups are living organisms. They evolve. And when something, or someone, stops aligning with the mission, hard decisions have to be made. That's not betrayal. That's leadership." The interviewer pressed her, gently. "So you deny taking anything from him without credit?" Madeline's eyes narrowed just a fraction. "I deny that there was ever theft. And frankly, I think what we're seeing is someone struggling with the reality of his own limits. I hope he finds peace." I paused the video. Finds peace. Like I was some unhinged ghost clawing at her success from the grave. Like I was the problem, and she was the victim. I stared at her frozen face on my screen for a long time. That tiny smirk she tried to bury under professionalism. And something inside me stopped shaking. Because now I knew she wasn't just trying to silence me. She was rewriting the entire history of us. Not just the business, us. She had always been the master of the narrative. In pitch meetings, in investor dinners, in press releases. She had this God-level ability to steer the story no matter how messy the reality behind the scenes was. And now she was using it on me. So I changed my approach. If she wanted to play PR chess, fine. But I wasn't going to play the black pieces anymore, constantly reacting. I was going to move first. I called the only person who ever stood up to her and lived to tell the tale, Marlon Godfrey. Marlon had been our lead back-end developer during year 2. A genius, a weirdo, and someone Madeline hated because he couldn't be controlled. She fired him after he refused to hand over a tool he built that optimized one of our data modules. Said it wasn't scalable. But we both knew she just didn't like not owning something. Marlon had dirt. He also had pride. So I took a chance. I sent him a message. I know you hate me for not backing you, but I think it's time we both stop pretending she didn't screw us. He replied in under 5 minutes. What took you so long? An hour later, we met at a hole-in-the-wall Vietnamese place near the freeway. I hadn't seen him in years. He looked the same. Wild hair, massive laptop bag, and a t-shirt that said, I void warranties. No handshake, just a grunt and a nod. I kept everything, he said over phone. Emails, voice memos, internal Slack messages. Even the original architecture you and I built before she rewrote the repo to exclude us. I blinked. You have that? He nodded. Thought I'd need it someday. Guess today's the day. I paid for lunch. He handed me a flash drive. And just like that, I had what I needed to blow a hole through her entire version of reality. But I wasn't going to leak it to the blogs. No more whispers. No more anonymous tips. This time, it was going to be me. Face on camera. Full name. Everything. Because if she wanted to turn me into a ghost, I was going to haunt her out in the open. I didn't sleep the night before the upload. I sat there, in that tiny rental room that still smelled like stale paint and someone else's cologne, watching the render bar crawl across the screen at a snail's pace. My laptop fan screamed like a dying jet engine, and every few seconds I'd whisper, don't crash, as if the machine could hear me. It felt unreal, like I was preparing a confession and a declaration of war at the same time. My palms were sweating, my eyes burning, and my head buzzing from cheap coffee and too much adrenaline. The video wasn't polished. No studio lights, no fancy editing. Just me, sitting at that desk under a single flickering bulb, looking like a ghost. But I didn't care about aesthetics. I wanted honesty. Ugly, trembling, unfiltered honesty. I wanted the world to see exactly what she had turned me into. I opened with the words that had been echoing in my head for months. She called it business. I called it betrayal. Then I laid everything out. The contracts, the erased code credits, the emails with timestamps, the recordings, her voice admitting I'd built the prototype, my voice begging her to give me a chance to stay, and then the clip where she laughed, and said, Curtis, you're good for starting things, but I finished them. The whole thing lasted 47 minutes. Not a documentary, not a rant, just one man telling the truth while trying not to fall apart. When I finally hit upload, my hands were shaking so badly I almost clicked delete by mistake. The title read, What Really Happened at Nexera Labs, My Story. I didn't think it would go anywhere. Maybe a few hundred views, some sympathy comments, and then the usual internet silence. But within an hour, the view count started ticking upward like a timer I couldn't stop. 1,000 views, then 5,000, then 50, then trending. The algorithm must have loved the drama, the keywords, the scandal, the tears. Whatever it was, people were watching. And not just strangers. Former employees of ours started commenting. One posted, I remember when this guy disappeared. We were told he burned out. Guess not. Another said, he's telling the truth. We all saw what she did. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I ignored it. Then again. Same number. On the third call, I answered without saying a word. Curtis. It was her. That voice I used to fall asleep to. The same tone that could make me feel safe or destroyed depending on the day. Madeline, I said, my throat tightening. There was silence. Just her breath, sharp and steady, like she was pacing. Then she spoke. You need to take that video down. I laughed, a dry, hollow sound I didn't recognize as my own. You mean the one where I told the truth? You think you know what truth is? She snapped. You're playing with fire. Do you have any idea what you started? I started telling my side, I said quietly. Finally, she didn't yell. That would have been easier. Instead, she went cold, precisely the way she used to when negotiating contracts. Curtis, I'm warning you. Take it down before this gets worse. For both of us. Then she hung up. I stared at the phone, feeling that strange mix of victory and fear twist in my gut. The kind that tells you you've crossed a line you can't uncross. By the next morning, it wasn't just trending. It was global. Hashtags, reaction videos, people dissecting every sentence, every screenshot. Some called me a liar. Others called me a martyr. But the one thing no one was doing anymore was ignoring me. And that's when the email arrived. Not from her. Not from a lawyer. From someone else. Subject, we should talk. She's not done yet. The sender's name made my blood freeze. Bryce Langley. Her so-called strategic partner. The man she replaced me with. I opened the message. Just one line. You're right, Curtis. She's built everything on lies. And I can prove it. I sat at a booth in the back of a nearly empty diner at the edge of the city, staring into a cup of coffee I couldn't bring myself to drink. The waitress had already stopped by 3 times, offering me refills I never asked for. I nodded out of politeness, but never looked up. I was too busy rehearsing every possible outcome of the conversation about to happen. The man I was about to meet wasn't just her replacement. He was her weapon, her alibi, her shield. And now, according to his message, he was ready to betray her too. When the door finally opened and Bryce walked in, he didn't look anything like I remembered. The smugness was gone. He wasn't dressed like the strategic face of a multi-million-dollar company. No blazer, no watch, just a hoodie and faded jeans, and a look in his eyes like something had been pulled out from under him. He scanned the room, spotted me, and walked over like a man heading to his own funeral. Curtis, he said quietly, sitting down across from me without waiting for an invite. Bryce. We stared at each other for a long moment. I was trying to read him, figure out whether this was a setup, a performance, or some late-game manipulation. But his eyes weren't dancing with charm. They were bloodshot, sleepless, raw. I'm not here to apologize, he said. I didn't expect you to, I replied. He nodded. Good. Because I won't pretend I wasn't part of it. I knew what she was doing. Hell, I helped draft the press statements when she cut you out. So why are you here? I asked. He looked away for a second, then pulled something from his bag, a folder. Actual paper. Not digital. Not traceable. She's planning to spin this, he said. Bigger than you realize. You think that video put pressure on her? It did. But it also forced her to move faster. She's already repackaged your old framework under a new product line. With new branding. Full launch in 6 days. I felt like the air got punched out of my lungs. She's going to erase everything you just did with one demo and a new set of buzzwords, he continued. And no one will care what's real anymore. They'll just see what works. She doesn't need to disprove you. She just needs to drown you. I opened the folder. Inside were pages of internal memos, early architecture diagrams, many with my handwriting still visible in the margins, and a printed email chain between Madeline and their new dev team. It was chilling. One line stood out more than any other. Remove the legacy tags. We don't want Rame's fingerprints on anything public-facing. She was laundering my code. Bryce watched me as I read. You were right about her. I didn't see it. Or maybe I did, and just didn't want to admit it. She's good at building the illusion that you need her more than she needs you. She told me I'd burn out, I said. He smirked. She told me she'd make me a legend. Then she threatened to leak old messages between us if I ever disagreed with her publicly. That caught my attention. Messages. From when we started sleeping together, he said bluntly. Back when she was still with you, before the company even hit Series A. I was dumb enough to believe she loved me. Turns out I was just her backup generator. The silence between us stretched. He wasn't gloating. He wasn't proud. He looked like a man who had already accepted he was going to lose, and was trying to at least go down with some clarity. So what do you want from me? I finally asked. Nothing. I already lost my stake. She had me removed from the board last week. NDA threats are coming. My name's already being scrubbed from the founder narrative. And you're okay with that? He gave a bitter laugh. No, but I'm done lying for her. And if you're actually going to fight this, really fight it. I figured you deserve the ammo. I looked down at the folder again. This is enough to bury her. No, Bryce said. It's enough to make her start bleeding. If you want to bury her, you'll need something worse. I looked at him. He leaned in. Her investors don't know about Project Iris. I froze. Project what? He nodded. It's the AI tool she's been quietly building off EchoGen's learning engine. It's invasive, borderline illegal, tracks emotional triggers, and repackages them into predictive behavioral ads. She swore it would stay internal, but I saw the partnership deck. She's already licensing it to a political firm. You're serious? I was there when she demoed it. Live. On a real audience. People had no idea they were being tested. She called it human engineering. She said, "We're not selling ads anymore. We're selling reactions." My head was spinning. I thought I was fighting to reclaim my work. But this was something else entirely. "If you can prove this," I said, "she's not just a thief. She's a threat." Bryce handed me a second flash drive. "This is the beta build. She doesn't know I copied it." I stared at it. A simple piece of plastic. But it might have just become the detonator. "Why me?" I asked. "Why give this to me?" He shrugged. "Because I believed her once, too. And now I need her to fall as badly as you do." As he stood to leave, he paused. "One last thing. She's going to hold a press event in 2 days. She's calling it the Future Forward Reveal. Project Iris will be the closing announcement. All eyes will be on her." "And if I drop this first?" I asked. His eyes darkened. "Then she won't be able to clean it up fast enough. But if you miss the window, she'll win again." He left me sitting there, alone, with a flash drive in one hand and the crushing weight of a decision in the other. The war wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about truth. About the people she was manipulating next. And I had 2 days to decide whether I'd be the one to finally stop her. The flash drive sat on my desk like a loaded weapon. I didn't touch it for hours. I just stared at it while the city outside my window moved forward without me. Horns blaring. Dogs barking. A siren in the distance. All of it just white noise now. Somewhere out there, Madeline was preparing her big reveal, rehearsing her lines in some glass-walled conference room, surrounded by sycophants who still believed she was building the future. But what she was actually building was something far darker, and I had the only evidence that could burn it all to the ground. I thought I'd be excited, relieved, maybe even triumphant. But all I felt was pressure. Real pressure. Not the kind you whine about when you've got a deadline or a cold. The kind that comes when you realize there are people out there, millions of them, who have no idea they're about to be manipulated by something you helped create. The kind that makes your ribs feel like they're caving in from the inside. I had less than 48 hours to act before her event. So I did what I always do when I need to think. I went to the old garage. Not the company's new high-rise office in the city. Not some sleek workspace with kombucha on tap. I mean the real garage. The one where it all started. Where we hung blankets over the windows to block the glare and used pizza boxes as whiteboards. I had kept the lease in my name. She never bothered to take it. Said it was bad optics. I unlocked the rusted door, flipped on the single overhead bulb, and let the silence wrap around me like a warning. There was still a folding table in the corner, and next to it, my original dev notebook. The one with coffee stains and pages so curled they looked like they'd been dipped in steam. I flipped it open, scanned the code, the scribbles, the notes in her handwriting next to mine. And then I found the post-it I didn't expect to see. Bright yellow. Fresh. New. It said, "Don't do anything stupid." My blood went cold. She'd been here. Not years ago. Not months. Recently. Before I could even process that, I heard it. A faint click behind me. Not loud. Not rushed. Just deliberate. Like someone trying to be quiet and failing. I turned fast, hard in my throat, and found myself face to face with Nora, Madeline's former assistant. She froze, a backpack in her hands and guilt written across her face like a confession. She looked smaller than I remembered, less confident, pale. "What the hell are you doing here?" I asked. She swallowed hard, eyes darting to the flash drive on the table beside me. I needed to see if you had it. She said you wouldn't be stupid enough to keep it here." My brain blanked out. "Wait, she sent you?" Nora didn't answer right away. That was all the confirmation I needed. "You've been feeding her everything," I whispered, more to myself than to her. "The video, the meeting with Bryce. You've been spying for her." "It's not like that," she said quickly, stepping forward, hands raised. "You don't understand what she's capable of. Try me." Nora closed her eyes for a second, like she was gathering the last of her courage. "She knows people in government circles, Curtis. People who don't want this exposed. Project Iris isn't just an ad tool anymore. It's being pitched as predictive surveillance. Election modeling. Behavior control. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. I had suspected she was building something unethical. But that was beyond even her. You knew this and didn't stop her? I asked. I tried, she snapped. But I signed NDAs stacked so high I can't breathe. And when I threatened to leak what I knew, she reminded me about my mother's immigration status. Said a few calls could create problems. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry I followed you. I didn't want to. But if I don't bring that drive back to her, I don't know what happens next. For a moment, we both just stood there, the air thick with something that felt like regret and fear twisted together. And then I did something even I didn't expect. I handed her the flash drive. She looked at me like I'd just thrown away my last lifeline. What are you doing? You're not getting the drive? I said quietly. You're getting a drive. She stared at it, slowly realizing what I meant. I made decoys, I said. 10 of them. Different metadata, altered signatures. Yours is blank. Let her think she won. Let her lower her guard. Nora looked at me with something like admiration, or maybe guilt. You're serious? I nodded. But I need one thing in return. She tensed. What? Access. Tomorrow night. I need someone on the inside of that event. She hesitated, then slowly nodded. She won't see you coming, she said. No, I replied. Because this time, I'm not coming as the guy she left behind. The event was held at a renovated museum downtown, the kind of place with exposed brick and glass ceilings and ambient lighting designed to make powerful people feel like they're experiencing something historic. Everything about the room screamed curated perfection. White orchids on each table, a live quartet playing some ambient techno-classical fusion, and Madeline front and center on stage in a blood-red blazer, smiling like the future belonged to her. It was surreal, watching it unfold from the second-level balcony. No one noticed me slip in. Nora had kept her word. She left my name with the internal AV vendor, disguised as a freelance camera op. I wore a black crew shirt, carried a fake lanyard, and kept my eyes low. But my pulse was pounding. This was it. The end of everything. Or the start of something I didn't yet understand. Below, the event was in full swing. She introduced Iris, describing it as a revolutionary AI platform that could predict not only consumer behavior, but emotional resonance in real time. The crowd murmured in admiration. A few gasps, heads nodding. I recognized faces, investors, journalists, even a few politicians in the back, everyone eating out of her hand. And then came the moment she always loved. The demo, a live test, controlled, timed, and meticulously rehearsed. Except this one wouldn't go as planned. Because right as she launched the interface, the main screen behind her flickered. She paused. Another flicker. Then the screen glitched once more, and her own voice filled the hall. But not from her mouth. It was the clip. You should patent that before someone tries to steal it. You're the only one who understands it. Her voice. Her face. Recorded years ago in our old apartment. She froze. The crowd turned silent. Whispers began. Then the clip changed. Screenshots of contracts. Source code comparisons. Bryce's name. Mine. A timeline. Audio logs. Timestamps. Everything. Not flashy. Not overproduced. Just fact after brutal fact, unfolding like a courtroom exhibit. She turned slowly, realizing she'd lost control. The projector wasn't running her file anymore. It was running mine. A secure upload, hardwired into the backup system via an HDMI switch from the floor beneath the stage. Set up by me. And then I stepped into the light. No more shadows. No more anonymous tips. No more fear. Just me, in a plain shirt. Holding the mic, one of the AV guys passed to me without question. Hi, everyone. My name is Curtis Rames. You probably don't know me, but you've definitely seen my work. Security hesitated. They looked at each other, unsure. No one moved. Maybe they knew. Maybe they were just waiting to see where this went. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I simply explained. Calmly, clearly, with evidence, with dates, with receipts. I told the story of building EchoGen, of being erased, of Project Iris and how far it had gone without accountability. Madeline didn't interrupt. She couldn't. She was stone still, mouth tight, eyes locked on mine like she wanted to shatter me where I stood. But I had already broken free. When I was done, I handed the mic to the AV team, nodded, and walked out. No applause. No drama. Just the quiet, powerful sound of a room full of people reevaluating everything they thought they knew. By morning, the internet had exploded. The video feed from the event had been mirrored and re-uploaded dozens of times. Hashtags trended. News outlets ran the story. Investors froze funding. A government inquiry was announced within 48 hours. Madeline disappeared from the media circuit overnight. Her statement was short and vague. Something about unforeseen complications and taking time to reflect. But it didn't matter anymore, because I was done chasing her shadow. 2 weeks later, I stood outside a small but crowded co-working space in Austin, Texas, where my new team, real people, real friends, were brainstorming the next version of EchoGen. Not for power, not for manipulation, but for rebuilding what mattered: trust. Nora joined as our head of strategy. Marlon returned to lead development. Bryce? He didn't come with us, but he testified. And me? I wasn't famous. I wasn't rich. But I was respected. And finally at peace.